Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video, I'm going to share some information with you on two of my favorite green superfoods, and they are Spirulina and Chlorella. Now, I have been using Spirulina since I was about 18, and I learned about this in the gym, started teaching classes, started personal training through my 20s, and as you know, a lot of people in the gym share different nutrition and different supplement tips, and this was something that got on my radar when I was really, really young. And I have been lucky enough to use this all the way through to where I am in my mid-60s now. And I think it has made a huge difference because for almost daily, all these decades, this has been a part of my supplement routine. And there's so many reasons. Now, I did learn about Chlorella in my 30s when I started doing regular parasite cleanses, and I would use the Chlorella as a binder. And then right before I turned 40, I had all my amalgam fillings removed, and Chlorella became a very, very important piece of helping keep my biology safe as the mercury, the heavy metals were being released from being exposed to all that amalgam being removed. That was a very important part of getting me through that safely. I did have a biological dentist help me with that, and I had one quadrant removed at a time over about an 18-month period. So I know that many people are familiar with Spirulina and Chlorella, and there are so many reasons to have it on your radar. So first of all, what are they exactly? Now, both of these are algae. In fact, Spirulina is technically a blue-green algae, spiral shaped, and it grows in warm alkaline lakes and waters. You know, we now source our Spirulina off the coast of Hawaii because it's now grown and on purpose, so that because it's in such high demand. Now, Chlorella is a single-celled green freshwater algae with a tough cell wall, and that's why when you look for Chlorella, you want broken cell wall Chlorella because then it's bioavailable and your body can absorb all the nutrition that is in Chlorella. Now, both are whole food microalgae, and you can consume the entire organism either in powder form or in tablets, okay, because they actually will press the powder into a tablet. And I did a Spirulina and Chlorella both like that for a while, but now I prefer either the powder or the powder that's encapsulated and just really, really easy to consume. In fact, for many years, probably 20 or 25 years, I did green smoothies on a regular basis, and I always put a scoop of Spirulina and a scoop of Chlorella into my green smoothie, along with some other things. Sometimes it ended up looking more gray than green, and if you're a person who's been making smoothies for a while, you know exactly what I mean. Now, both of these are nutrition powerhouses. So Spirulina contains up to 60 to 70% complete protein. And there was a period of time in my life, about 12 years, where I was mostly a vegetarian. Now, I did eat a little bit of fish, and I learned that Spirulina has your complete proteins. And so this was an important part of my diet during those years when I was a vegetarian. And it's got all your amino acids too. So it's rich in B vitamins, iron, magnesium, potassium, and a blue antioxidant pigment called phycocyanin. It's a very powerful antioxidant. When you think antioxidant, think anti-cancer because it scavenges free radicals. And to me, Spirulina, in fact, when we first brought it out as a product, we called it anti-aging. We didn't call it Spirulina, but then we were told it's making a claim. You can't claim that something is anti-aging, even though it is. But now we call it just Spirulina. Now, Chlorella is high in chlorophyll, vitamin C, beta carotene, iron, zinc, and omega-3s. So think about that. That is a power punch of nutrition in these little humble superfoods, these little humble algae, right? They both contain antioxidants, trace minerals, and essential amino acids. They both contain that. They provide a natural multivitamin. And this is why, I've had people over the years ask me, what's my favorite multivitamin, or why don't you bring out a multivitamin? And it's always like, well, let me point you over to Spirulina and Chlorella because this is nature's multivitamin. And this is how I've always looked at it. So I've never consumed a multivitamin. Even when I was pregnant with my kids, I always consumed, actually spirulina was my choice. So, and I'm not telling you that's what you should do. In fact, none of this is meant to be medical advice. This is simply my own opinion based on my own research. So please, as usual, do your own research. So they provide a natural multivitamin in food form. It's non-synthetic, which is something that I really love about both of these superfoods. Now, the key health benefits for both of these are this: energy and vitality. They boost endurance and they reduce fatigue. Who doesn't want more energy, right? I mean, if you're like me and you watch little kids run around and they can run around all day long and they just have endless energy until they collapse into a nap or they collapse into bed at night, who doesn't want more energy? And I really believe that the addition of these two green superfoods in my diet for all of these decades has made a huge difference in my ability to keep my exercise as part of my routine. Most people know I love to hike. I'm a big hiker, and just to stay active. And these provide that. Detoxification. Both of them have detoxification properties, but especially chlorella. It binds to heavy metals and supports cleansing. Super important. They both provide immune support. They help promote balanced immune function, healthy skin and hair, nutrient and chlorophyll support for cellular repair. So think about all the things that we do to prevent aging. And for me, what I've really realized, it's about feeling good and being functional. And I think anyone who can relate to that, whether you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, I think there reaches a point where you go, okay, I'm going to have a ton of wrinkles, my skin's going to sag, and all that stuff, whatever. But this is going to help me stay functioning and energetic as I age, besides all the other lifestyle stuff. It's got anti-inflammatory and antioxidant benefits. It's really good for gut health, gentle support for microbiome balance. This one is really important for me. Now, another nice thing is it helps to alkalize your body. We all know that if we keep our body in alkaline balance, that it can help prevent almost every disease. And then what happens is when we get into stress, our body immediately goes acidic. So you might be doing all of the things. You might be taking a ton of spirulina and a ton of chlorella and doing a bunch of other things, drinking alkaline water. So this is, again, one of those things where if you have the energy and the stamina and the endurance to get out and walk every day, get out and exercise and do the thing, that's going to immediately lower your stress. So there's all these beautiful balances that these superfoods, along with other lifestyle things, they all complement each other. These two superfoods have pretty different traditional backgrounds, okay? So spirulina was eaten by the Aztecs and the African tribes near Lake Chad. And you can find ancient history on spirulina being used by the Native Americans, the Mexicans, and the Africans. This was actually, they would make them into patties, into little cakes, hard cakes, and they would consume them. They realized how highly, densely nutritious they were. Now, chlorella was not studied until after World War II, and it was studied as a food of the future. In fact, it was used because it's got so much high protein and its oxygen producing ability. And it was actually used in space missions because of how easy it was to transport and to preserve, because once you dry it, it gives it a long shelf life, and it provided a lot of nutrition, a lot of protein, so many reasons that something so simple and so beautiful should be added into from my perspective, into your daily routine. Okay, so this is how they work together. Spirulina nourishes and energizes, and chlorella cleanses and detoxifies. In fact, we call our broken cell wall chlorella detoxifier. That's what we name that product, because it is such a powerful detoxifier. And if you think about the idea of keeping your body free of toxins, you can have a lot more energy and clarity if your body is toxin free. And heavy metals, a lot of us know, accumulate in the fatty tissues of our brain. And this is where I feel like this has been a massive, massive benefit for me for knowing about this for so many decades. So it's great to pair them. In fact, what I wrote here, spirulina in the morning for energy and Chlorella later in the day for cleansing. So what I do is I actually take 2 capsules of Spirulina every day, and I take twice a day, and 2 capsules of Chlorella twice a day. So what I do is I do Spirulina in the morning and midday, and then I do Chlorella midday and evening. And this is just a routine that I've gotten on for decades, and I very rarely skip. So I have a little group of supplements that I travel with, and these are 2 of them. In fact, Spirulina and Chlorella are part of the Jane Health 4-pack that includes turmeric and also cayenne pepper in the form of heart love. So these 4, we bundle them together, we put a discount on them because it is such a power punch. Look at it as nature's multivitamin and all the other things that these do. Okay, so here's how to use it, how I would suggest using it, especially if you're going to use it, say, in a smoothie. Okay, so you can actually get a really good source of Spirulina and Chlorella in powder form. You can buy it like half a pound or 4 ounces or whatever. Half a teaspoon of powder or a few tablets daily, and then increase it slowly. You know, when I had my silver fillings out, almost 25 years now, I started off with a small amount a few months prior to actually having them removed, because your body needs a chance to kind of acclimate to Chlorella. It might make some people a tiny bit nauseous if you take too much, and your body just needs to acclimate to expelling the toxins, usually through your urine. In fact, what I noticed is, especially when I was having my silver fillings out, is that there was a metallic smell in my urine, totally normal. And I've had people ask me and be a little bit concerned about that, but from my experience, it's not anything to be concerned about. That is very normal and actually very, very good, okay? So you can add it to smoothies, juices, or water, especially if you do like a little bit of lemon or a little bit of coconut water. Some people are hardcore and they just stir it into a glass of water and drink it down, which is awesome. I can do that, but I actually at this point now prefer the capsules. It does matter the quality. When we source our Chlorella and Spirulina, we have them, it goes through a very extensive lab test. And we can send you a copy of the lab test. It's called a COA, which is a certificate of analysis. It shows you microbes, mold, different things that might be on it, and it gives you we test for heavy metals as well, which is super, super important. Now, you can grow your own Spirulina and Chlorella, but it actually is a little bit more difficult than saying growing other plants in your yard, like echinacea and lemon balm and elderberry, things like that. It's a little bit more difficult to actually grow your own algae. The Spirulina grows in warm, alkaline lakes, and it's relatively easy to cultivate. Chlorella grows in fresh water, and it needs controlled processing to break the cell wall. So here's some of my personal experience, some of the benefits that I have really felt. I think the consistent use of it has supported my energy, my skin clarity, and my recovery from consistent exercise over the decades. I believe this has been one of the key things that has made a huge difference for me. I believe that it's given me noticeable improvements in my focus, my endurance, and an overall lightness in the way I feel in my body. You know, this has been something, like I said, since I started taking it, the Spirulina, when I was 18. You know, that was a long, long time ago, okay? Now, here's some really quirky fun facts about both of these things. Now, Spirulina means little spiral, named for its shape under the microscope. So when they first started studying this and looking at it under a microscope, it has these little spirals. So hence Spirulina, which is an awesome name for that. Chlorella's name means little green one in Greek. So Chlorella, little green one in Greek. Now, NASA considered both as foods for astronauts, and Spirulina's pigment gives the natural blue color to food and drinks. You'll find people that will use natural things to color their foods, and you know, there are a lot of companies that are starting to realize that that's what people want, and you can get a natural blue-green color from Chlorella when you add it to different drinks and to different foods, which is really awesome. So both are technically forms of pond scum, which you might not realize, but some of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth. In fact, if there, God forbid, some type of, disaster or some type of apocalypse or whatever. I believe if you have some of these, you could actually live off them for a while if you needed to. So something really good to have in your food storage for short term. I mean, you don't want to say, okay, I have to live on chlorella and spirulina for a year, but something nice to have for a short term if you needed to give yourself some nutrition and etc. Now, here's some key things to consider. I'm going to wrap this up with this. Consistency over quantity, okay? So you don't need to take a ton of it. And for me, consistently keeping it in your system is one of those things that just provides nutrition. You don't need to take a whole lot of it. That's a key. Small doses work the best, especially when you're first starting with chlorella. And I would say, unless you're doing something big like having your silver fillings removed, I actually did a lot of chlorella during that time. And I was guided by my naturopath and my biological dentist on exactly how much to take. And it was perfect. So always go to guidance and someone who's an expert if you need some guidance on that. But for the most part, just a small daily dose just keeps it happening for you. Always choose clean, third-party tested products that are free from heavy metals and other microorganisms, okay? This is great for vegans and vegetarians that are looking for natural protein and micronutrients. So if being a vegetarian is very important for you, maybe you're being a vegetarian because you're going through a health issue, then adding these two superfoods into your supplement routine, I feel is very, very good and very, very important. And then lastly, always remember to combine it with good hydration, whole foods, and lots of rest. Because what these two do is they amplify what you're already doing. So I would love to know what you think about these two superfoods. Are you familiar with them? Have you been using them? Have you had a weird experience with them? I know I've talked to people who have felt a tiny bit nauseous after they've taken the chlorella, especially. Make sure it's broken cell wall, because then your body can absorb all the nutrients that are available in it. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day, and we will see you in the next one.